Hello and welcome to this month's RLW webinar from Roofers Coffee Shop. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and I have to tell you, this is what you need right now with what's happening out there. We're going into winter. In fact, I had some snow out my window this morning, and we are excited to bring the experts from TAMKO to talk to us about leveraging the off season for growth. We're in the off season, believe it or not. It's the holidays, and so they are going to help us out. Starting out first, we are going to have some housekeeping. We are being recorded, and it will be available within 24 to 48 hours. So please be sure to share this with everyone out there. This is great for your company on all levels and other obviously other roofing professionals. Also, please talk to us. The chat is open. We want to know where you're calling from, who you are, what you're doing. I see a lot of familiar names, so it's always exciting. So feel free to chat away. Okay, we're going to get started and so excited. So we are going to first present and introduce John Abernathy, my friend from TAMKO. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with TAMKO?
Yeah, so I'm the director of contractor engagement for TAMKO. I had a key role in developing TAMKO's new contractor program that went to market early this year. And my main goal now is just basically, hearing from contractors, understanding what their needs are, and helping educate them within their business, kind of building a team around me to kind of help walk into businesses, do all the way from like some, basic sales type strategy, operation strategy, and then, all the way across the operations with like John Gross is on the call,
Yeah.
going into companies and really digging in and helping them understand, what they've done present state this year and how do we get to the next level next year. Just understanding where they want to go and then giving them advice on how to hit their goals. So
I love
doing
it.
events, that type of stuff. Just got back last week from Cincinnati, Ohio. We had an amazing event in Cincinnati and running around checking it out, spending time with contractors and just trying to help understand where they're at, their business in different markets and do what we can to assist them.
I love it. You guys do so much, and TAMKO contractors are just special. That's just so true. And speaking of which, even though John is not on at this moment, John, you're still there, right?
Still here, yes, ma'am. Stuck in Atlanta traffic.
Yes. So, John, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with TAMKO and about your past history with your business?
Yeah, so fourth generation roofer. I'm the son of a son of a son of a roofer, right? So my great grandpa kind of got all this mess started in the roofing world. We built and scaled a few companies. We sold our company in January 2024. And then I stayed on with the private equity company for about 15 months to help with some operational efficiencies and some kind of consolidations. And then after that, we had TAMKO started knocking on our door and wanted us to come and help do some strategic growth and help train contractors and help John kind of work side by side with Mr. Abernathy there on the contractor program. So that's where we're at today. We're out in Atlanta talking to contractors and territory managers and having a lot of fun.
I love it. I love it. And really helping other contractors. That's what it's all about. This community is really supporting that. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do. I want to remind everybody again, the chat is open. So please chat us up. Emojis, comments, questions. We want to have it all throughout the conversation. So let's start out with the state of the industry. I always like to kind of John, I always like to start kind of on that big level. So John Abernathy, can you kind of talk what you're seeing around the state of the industry going into this winter season?
I think in Q4 of this year, I think it's been a little softer throughout the industry with consumer demand. I've seen several markets, come in a little softer. I mean, there's still some that are strong because they've had storms. There's, one side of it, you look at certain markets, you've had a lot of storms that hit late in the year that we typically don't get. I know Kansas, for one, got a pretty good one late in the year, and like it's kind of uncommon to have those type of storms this time of year in the Midwest. But in other markets around the country, I've seen it be a little softer. I know the new construction segment is way softer than it was a few years ago, due to just, obviously it's an obvious thing that everybody knows, high interest rates and a lot of inflation in the new homes. So it's making it untouchable for a lot of home buyers who need to buy homes. It's out of reach with them financially. We're starting to see some of that, start to change a little bit this year. That hopefully will make it a little better going into the latter part of maybe 2026. With interest rates dropping and a little bit here and there and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of homeowners have been kind of holding out on the retail side of re-roof, just kind of holding out as long as they can, just because finances have been a little tougher, a little
Yeah.
tighter around the
Yeah.
country. People.
And like you talked about, just to kind of bring all that together, it is a little bit, and I mean this in quotes, a perfect storm because we do have the economy just a little slower, interest rates, people are waiting for those to drop. The housing market is not turning as fast as it was. And then when you really put that whole extreme weather or a lack of extreme weather this year, it really has made a difference in the industry. um, so as one of the things, and John Abernathy, I'd love you to talk about this, is for contractors to get past, to kind of go through these more rapids, is to really look at diversifying their business and differentiating it. And we're going to talk a lot about that, of how people can do a better job that direction. So one of the ways is extending your season. So
Yep.
as you're looking at this, let's talk about how can they, especially that storm you had in Kansas, that's really interesting because now we have contractors working through the winter. How can they do that? How can they take care of the storms that are happening at weird times of year, but keep going?
Well, I just always look back to our Stormfighter Flex products, the polymer modified asphalt shingle that we make is the only one in the industry that can install down to 25 degrees. So if you have temperatures that like throughout the Midwest, 20, there's a lot of days that are above 25 degrees in the winter, but they're well above 40 degrees. So,
Right.
all the other products in the market have to be installed above 40 degrees in order to make warranty on them. If something was to go wrong, it wouldn't be covered if they weren't installed above 40. So that 25 degree, just that 15-degree temperature difference adds a lot of opportunity for contractors to continue to install roofs through the winter season. That'd
Yeah.
be
And what are you hearing from the contractors out there that are that are doing this right now?
They're able to extend their season. They're able to have conversations. Another thing I like about the polymer modified asphalt products, if you look at data, they actually help mitigate the risk of the homeowner by 55%, which is pretty powerful. That's off of pure data. It mitigates their risk. So that's another strong talking point with the polymer modified stuff that a lot of people don't understand is if you look at an oxidized asphalt shingle versus a polymer modified, it really, the big pain point this year, especially with the insurance side, like talking about the storm that hit Kansas, is these homeowners have never seen, had to file a claim, are now seeing these really high deductibles. So it's a good conversation to go in and say, hey, you got a really high deductible. So the mindset of the roofer is, you know, how do we go educate the homeowner on how we can mitigate their risk from not having to pay this deductible again next year or the year after?
Right.
I know it's never a guarantee, but anything you can help them that would help them kind of gamble on maybe not having to do this again is a good thing to talk about.
I want to kind of expand on that point a little bit because I think it is really important. There have been tremendous shifts in insurance over the last five
Mhm.
years, maybe a little bit further. And we, it's just not like it used to be. There's higher deductibles. They aren't always approving claims. And so as contractors are talking to their homeowners, that conversation about, hey, we can get you a product that's going to last. It's modified. It's class 4 hell rated. What are you hearing are the conversations with the contractors to really kind of start changing that mindset and really helping because no one wants to keep throwing roofs into the landfills.
Right. So a lot of the guys that are really shifting their focus back to systems, roof systems, and really educating homeowners on what's valuable to the homeowner, or having a lot of success doing that. So maybe it costs a little bit more today to get a roof put on, right? But that education process of everything we can do to give you a better, more reliable system is absolutely working. And it's across the map. I hear all the time, everywhere I go, well, you don't understand. This is a very cheap and competitive market. And I'm just going to kind of burst everyone's bubble on the call. It's every market in America. And it doesn't matter where I go, I can always ask the question. I bet this is the cheapest market. And I don't understand. There's a roofing company on every corner. You don't understand it. It's the cheapest market. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's every single town in America. So everybody's facing the same things. It's a very competitive landscape out there. Anytime, the landscape gets very competitive, um, it gets hard, right? It gets
Yeah.
harder. So we have to start thinking of ways to set ourselves apart from competitors for as better contractors. And it all comes down to how we're educating the homeowner, what we're saying to the homeowner, so that we don't just blend in with the other 25 roofing companies that are on the same in the same street that we're on. I mean, I've seen that in some towns.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. So you got to be able to set yourself apart, and a big piece of that is literally pushing people back to making sure you're at least offering homeowners enhanced warranties, educating them on them. I'm seeing maintenance programs take off to a high level. I mean, you got maybe one out of 20 contractors of what I've seen, or maybe even one out of 50, really, that actually offer things that keep them sticky with homeowners, like maintenance programs and maintenance plans. That's starting to
Yes.
really take off. Insurance companies are sick of being homeowners maintenance, or feeling like that homeowners call them when they need maintenance. That's not their
Right.
job. So like it's the contractor's job to maintain that. There's three things to consider with that. You have a yearly inspection, then you have maintenance, and you have service. And if you can build all that out in your company, it brings a lot of value to you. So I mean, I could talk for hours on that and why I think it's the
Well,
best approach, because nobody else is doing it. It sets you apart. Very, very few.
exactly. I mean, you're right. And what you just said, there's so many roofing contractors in our community, right? You just don't understand. There's just so many. Well, differentiate yourself and make yourself different. And that really kind of goes into that extending your season,
Yep.
because now you're out there inspecting roofs, making sure that the Christmas lights haven't done any damage, whatever, however that, or maybe putting the Christmas lights on, who knows? But having that relationship with the
Well,
homeowners, I love it.
and just having, good documentation. Like insurance companies love when things are documented. So like if you're out pre-storm getting that documentation done for the homeowners every year, that way if there is an issue later, there's no argument on, I had photos a month before this got hit by hail. There's a lot of fighting and stuff going on between insurance companies and contractors in that area. So like the more photos you can take, the more you can document. You hear of carriers now. I mean, I've got letters in my office at corporate at TAMKO from people, basically, hey, I got a letter from my insurance company and I have to get a brand new roof or they're going to drop me. And a lot of times when I dig into that, it's just due to lack of maintenance.
Yeah.
If I'm an insurance carrier and I fly a drone over, some of them are doing that now, or I send somebody out to inspect a home that I've got my policy to a homeowner on, and it's never been maintained, and the leaves are full of gutters, and there's algae all over it, and there's all these issues. I don't want to insure that house. It's going to be the next painful customer for me. So that's where the value of these things are really starting to add up for the homeowner. It makes sense for homeowners, and it really helps them keep their policies in place with their current carrier. And I mean, it's like roofs need maintained just like your car. It's almost like if you don't change the oil in your car, you can have a problem eventually, right? So we need to
Exactly.
put, it needs to be maintained, and there's nothing better than having those maintenance contracts in place that keeps you sticky with those homeowners year over year. If they have an issue and you're taking care of them, they're going to call you. You don't have any
Yeah.
competition. So,
That I I I I've been preaching this for years. I agree with you so much, John. I think it's so important, and I think now it's necessary, right? It's necessary because of the insurance, because of the economy, because of just homeowner consumer trends that are going on. And so for all, as contractors are looking at this, this is the time to start making some of those plans, either putting it together. Oh, there's John. Hello, John.
Hey, hello.
Yeah,
Sorry
hello.
about that.
Um, we, either putting that together or starting now or putting in their plans for 2026. And so as we look at 2026, that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about. Um, as they are starting to figure out what can help to extend their season and how to go about that. So, John Abernathy, let's start with you, and then John Royce, I'd love to bring you in on all this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So, looking at these things you have on the screen, know your numbers, training, and mitigating risk. Um, one of the things that I see, I'm going to start with mitigating risk here. So, one of the things that I see all the time, I looked at some fresh statistics the other day that I was pulling a bunch of reports on. And if you look at like an LLC that's filed today or filed 5 years ago, it's crazy what I'm seeing. You're like in roofing, 4 to 5% of them are still actively in business at 60 months.
Wow.
That's kind of what they're seeing. So at 36 months, it's like 80% are out of business. And a leading thing that causes that is people that start a company and think, man, this is really, really good for us, but they don't control. I'm going to talk about risk on the area of like installs. So like if you don't know, if you're not keeping up with your installs, making sure it's good practice and there's quality. I mean, I just heard of a company. I was talking to a company a while back. They said that they've been in business for 3 or 4 years, and they said last year they had over $400,000 in warranty claims over bad installs that got put on that they just overlooked or didn't see. I mean,
Wow.
that's a big cause of companies going out of business in 3 or 4 years. They don't think about the warranty claims, the issues, the things that happen. 95% of issues that happen with roofs are due to bad install.
Mm.
95%. So, you want to mitigate your risk, slow down on building the business and make sure you have the quality checks for the homeowners on the installs before you just go gung ho. And a lot of guys blow up. They get a lot of roofs. I hear about it all the time. I mean, John and I both do. Hey, we went from 0 to 200 installs in 1 year. We're doing amazing. Well, what they don't understand, if they didn't have a good handle on the quality of work that was getting put on, more than likely the crews that installed them may not be with you 3 or 4 years from now, and you get stuck holding the bag on that. So
Right.
that's what I want to say is on mitigate risk. I'm gonna let John talk about knowing your numbers and some of that training stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think, oh, sorry, Heidi, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, so like on knowing numbers, that's one of the things that we really do train on pretty heavy. I was one of the contractors we worked with this morning. It's amazing that a lot of guys that don't track, a lot of the companies that aren't even tracking numbers, and
Yeah.
some simple numbers to know is just closing rates, like from lead to appointment rates. What is your average ticket? These are the types of things that if you got historical data on, that you can make really good decisions on where to invest your marketing dollars or your recruiting dollars or sales process stuff. Like, so without knowing numbers, like it's really hard to make good decisions and pull the right levers.
I think that is so important, John, right now, what we're seeing in the industry. And having been around for a while, and I think you gentlemen have been in the industry for a while yourselves, we see these cycles. I saw it in the 90s, saw it definitely, in the early 2000s, but then saw it, 2007, the Great Recession, is the contractors who know their numbers, who understand their risk. And there's been a lot of changes over the last 30 years from using your own crews to using sub crews. So there's additional risks there that probably maybe weren't as much before. But the contractors who do all those things, mitigating the risk, knowing their numbers, are training, take culture, taking care of the things, they're the contractors who are going to be here next year, the year after, 5, 10 years from now. And we've kind of seen that cycle after cycle of kind of riding the good times. But you really need to be doing a lot of this stuff and working with manufacturers who can help you do that.
Yeah,
John,
absolutely.
Yes,
yes.
yeah, we absolutely can. Yeah, I think training is a key. Well, all these things, I mean, are so good to
Yeah.
talk about. I think John and I could spend a lot of time on this, but you know, like John said, knowing your numbers, I've been in front of in the last 2 days. I kind of took the last 2 days, did a lot of running around and just individual company consulting, getting to know them. And every company I got in front of couldn't really give me answers on their numbers. And it's so important. I mean, if you don't know your numbers and have that tracked to a high level, you can't make good data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
Thing I like about data-driven decision is they're fact. I can make a decision off of fact and not emotion or off of what somebody else says in the company. And as you grow a company, you know, you can get all kinds of things back. Like for an owner, you could say, sales guy could call, I could have a location in another market. I've been there. I think we got $500,000 worth of sales we'll have by the end of the month. And you get to the end of the month, you'd have 200,000. So like there's just so many things you've got to track as fact versus what's fiction. And you kind of learn that. and numbers don't lie, and good systems and processes to be able to get people thinking about training. Um, on the training wagon is like the more time you spend training your team, the better results you're going to get in 2026. I see so many guys in roofing go out and start a company and just hire people and throw them, their training is go ride with one of the reps for a week.
Right.
And you got to get in and I mean, it's you got to practice more than you go out and actually get in front of the homeowner. So like the role playing is a big deal. I used the analogy the other day of like, do you think that, even though they've had a rough season, Kansas City Chiefs this year, but do you think that Patrick Mahomes only throws balls during the game? I guarantee you he throws 1,000 times more outside of the game. And so
Hmm.
they've got to get in and practice and you need to understand as a sales manager or owner what they're saying to the homeowner. And if you don't, then you're just destined to have issues, in my opinion.
I flipped to the financial because as we're talking about that, but I think one of the things that's so important, and I mean, we've been doing it, we do it monthly, with the coffee shops. I think a lot of companies do it monthly and really understand. And I mean, we have people watching it daily, obviously, too. But John Boyce, as we're kind of talking about this, doing that 2025 review, really taking the time to look back at the jobs that worked and the jobs that didn't work for you, where you made money and where you didn't
Yeah.
make money. Talk a little bit about that and how important that is, and kind of maybe some of the tips that you've used in your businesses to make those evaluations.
Yeah, so it's always key to look back, right? So you always got to at least look back over the last year. I like historical data. So, I'm going to track like what was our actual revenue, because I mean, sales is for show, but the production side is to make dough, right? That's what we've always said, right? So it's like, how do you actually look back and see what actually got installed? And so we actually go back as far as we can, but typically over a 5 year period, and say, okay, so like, what did we do in January from the last five years, February, March, April, May, and like help companies set those goals and like look at the historical data. And so now going into the 2026 budgeting, now I know that historically January is 4% of my sales or revenue,
Yep.
and February is 6% of my revenue. So now I can set realistic goals because, there's times when a storm might hit in May and might hit in August. So I might have had a really good year in 2025 in August because a storm hit. But historically, I don't have a storm then. So how do I set my budget? And so we go in and do like a 30% year over year budget set. And that's what we try to do that. So if I did $3 million this year, I want to go 30% above that. Let's look to do 3.9 next year. Well, how do I actually get there? Right. And so
Yeah.
so now I want to set a red line as well. So I want to set my 30% growth budget, and then I want to set a red line. And my red line is going to be, what does it take to actually just break even this year? So it's not 3.9 million in revenue. My break even might actually be 2.7. So that way I can track two different numbers and make sure that I'm on track to at least break even this year, right? Based on percentage of my historical business. And then of course I'm going to set a stretch goal. So I set three budgets, which is crazy to say, but I'm going to set a red line, my 30%, organic growth, and then a 60% stretch goal. And then, but if I don't know historically, so when I get to May, and historically May is a 10% of my revenue month, but I do 4%, like, okay, well, what's going on historically here? What do I need to improve? And then that way that if I know those numbers, I can pull that with that lever immediately. Hey, is it a marketing issue? Is it a close issue? Is it a sales issue? Is it production? Like maybe it's a rainy, May. It's historically not rainy in May in this specific market, but it's raining this year, so I'm not getting things
Yeah.
installed.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about earlier, too. That weather does affect things so much. I mean, and what traditionally you may be looking at, well, this is normally like March has been our hail month. That might be April. It might be December. I mean, that's the thing that you kind of have to be able to really understand those numbers. Um, and as you went into your budgeting and kind of give yourself, right, a little bit of cushion and room in case that
Right.
those for those weather shifts.
Yeah,
That's I
and
was going
we
to
call
add.
it
Go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
we call it TAP, right? It's trends, anomalies, and patterns. Like I'm looking for what are my current trends? Was this an anomaly this year? And then what are the patterns that I can build off of? So
Yeah. John
I was going to say
Abernathy?
it's a lot of seen a lot of guys, really push back to that retail segment of the industry because it's more consistent. And you can look at it like that too. If you're building out or working on, building on a great retail sales platform, and I think it can be done in about any market, then you can kind of look at it as the retail's your bread and butter, and then right, the insurance stuff be the cream on the cake, and that way you're not, because storm stuff, like if I base my whole business model, John, off of a storm, what if it doesn't
Right.
storm? I mean, that's probably something, that we really looked at a high level as we grew. And then we also, when you grow, you have more overhead. How can we sustain? And I realized real fast that a storm is not a good way to sustain a business. So we've got to focus more on the retail side of business, which I think leads into kind of the way the market's shifting in a lot of states. I mean, John can tell you
Yeah.
firsthand from owning a roofing business in Florida, other states also, but Florida, that President State Florida is not really insurance that much anymore. It's more mainly a retail market because the deductibles
Yeah.
and things have gotten so high, and they're kind of forcing homeowners after 15 years to replace their roof. So
Right.
kind of seeing that happen in Florida, and then I'm starting to see that kind of take shape in other markets.
Yeah.
It's better, guys are gonna have to start really focusing on more of a retail mindset because everything else controls your business outside of that. The storm stuff absolutely controls your business. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's like how much would it grow next year, John? Well, is it going to storm or not? We can't
Right.
control
Yeah.
that. And if that's the way we're looking at business, we're missing it.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
a
for sure.
great question on that right there that just came in from Alex, which it says tracking weather effect. Other than keeping a daily diary, does anybody have a good way to research weather patterns? I don't always remember by the time I get to the end of the year what happened. So where's some good resources?
I would say that within that question, because there's some apps, right? Like Hail Trace and Weather Hubs and those types of things. But I don't know if that's the question, but I would at least put it into my system of like what the storm dates are that you can pull out. So we would always register and log in storm dates. So at the end of the year, like I could tell you, like I can tell you, Hurricane Ian was September 28th of 2022, right? Because one, we lived it, but we also worked that storm. So I just make sure that you're at least keeping a record of it inside of your system. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense or not. So
Well, I think also to that point, if you're trying to look back and get NOAA has that kind of information, I think you
yeah,
can go to some of those the weather companies and talk to them, and they also have historical information. So and good thing to kind of know for your area, especially if you're new to or expanding as you're going out. And Alex says, I can look at help, but I'm talking about weather that affects retail, like rainy or cold. Noah is going to tell you if you go
no,
on there, you can get it.
Yeah.
no, and
Yeah.
AccuWeather. So
Oh yeah,
you can get a
AccuWeather.
professional account with AccuWeather and go back, I think, 7 years or something and
Yeah,
look. So you can find those with those trends.
great
Yeah.
question. Great question. Chuck notes financing, financing, financing.
Yes.
As you're
Good old
kind of doing
Chuck.
your
We know
yeah,
Chuck.
Chuck.
That's my boy Chuck Love. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think he's right though. I think financing is, I've pushed financing. John has pushed, we've all pushed financing. I mean, in 2018 to 2019, I won some national awards for year over year growth, and it was literally pretty much due to bringing finance to the table and having my
Right.
guys do it on every single job every day. They offered financing, and whether it was an insurance job, it didn't matter. Had different ways that we would present that, and it literally, that 30% growth was financing.
yeah.
It was 30% that I wouldn't have got if I didn't finance. So it is a big key in growth. And then, I see a lot of companies that have finance options, but they just don't use them. Like the tools are
Mhm.
only as good as if you put them in your hands and actually use them and get your team doing it consistent. Consistency is a big thing with that. And that's what I see in companies. I ask all the time, hey, do you guys have a finance program you work with? And most of the time I'm hearing now, used to it was no, I'm hearing a lot more yeses. How often are you using it? Well, if somebody asked, and that's the mistake.
Yeah.
It's no, you offer it every time, whether they ask or not, and it'll change
Well,
your close
especially with
rate.
the economy right now and what's going on, and
Right.
people who think they can't afford it, but when they find out those financial financing offers, they can.
Yep. And then looking at it from more, and I say this often, I'm sure you've heard me say it, Heidi, in past episodes, is becoming a financial solutions expert. Focus on that more than just selling a roof. I mean, we already know people have that pain point in their lives right now during the current market conditions. And, just really listen to the homeowner. I love John Brose's approach of asking a lot of questions to kind of figure out where somebody's at um, in those areas without being too intrusive into their lives. You can do it. There's ways you can do that to kind of get some ideas to understand their pain points, and it kind of helps you to understand what you do need to offer that client. I mean, I've sold a lot of roofs just because I was able to offer them $149 a month payment so they could go on vacation to Hawaii with their insurance money and pay the $149 a month. And that's why I sold the roof because I listened to the fact that they were all excited about wanting to go to Hawaii, but they didn't have the money, and I came up with a solution so they could go. Had nothing to do with roofing. It wouldn't have mattered. The other three competitors that were all about talking about their shingles, they didn't care about that. That wasn't
Right.
their hot button. So, learning people's button is a big part of sales and understanding your client and having a solution that's different than your competitor.
Yeah.
I
So,
think I'll add in there too is like patterns too, Heidi, is like consumers are already financing everything in their life, right? Whether we can show that or not. Like I just did a training and we started talking about smartphones. Like I got my smartphone here. Like I would say 98% of the people finance with their smartphone for $24 a month for the next 24 months. And that's what they do. And then they're
yeah.
also putting the warranty on top of that at $10 a month for the rest of their life because they want to have another phone. So like that is already a pattern of how consumers currently purchase things. And I think if we get over in the weeds on that, like, well, my customers don't purchase that way. I don't believe that. Like it's just not what it is we wind up selling out of our own pocket, right? So
Hmm.
I'd say that's the one thing that I would caution roofing companies on is like don't sell out of your pocket because your consumer's buying a different way. That's why they're
Yeah.
beating you up on price, honestly.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. Solution selling too is makes that's what you have to do. I mean, that's what people want things solved for them and they want it to be easy and they want it to work. I do want to make sure we go on because we had touched on this, but I think it is so important that as we're talking about extending our season and what to do to prepare for 2026, production training is so important. So, John Abernathy, let's start with you just on the things and I really want to key in on what can manufacturers do to help, right? Because I know a lot of contractors, they have their training directors, they're doing internal training, but they really need those relationships with the manufacturers to make sure that they're doing it correct.
Yeah, so I can hit on that heavily, but something I realized this year is there's a lot of things that contractors do that they think they're doing the right thing when it comes to like production or install, even just install practices. And I've been able to teach a lot of guys this year on the big no-nos of things not to do that could affect them in the future if there's a product failure. So I think, for us, our job and responsibility is to get out in front of these guys. I would say firsthand, if you haven't been to one of our trainings on installation training, or we call it craft training, try to get on that. But number one thing is read installation instructions on products. All
Yeah.
right. I've been on some projects this last year that, were not covered by us. There was an issue and there was a reason why. And it was because the installer, one of them had been in business for 2 decades and had no idea you couldn't do a thing. And he was wrong. And it was lack of educating your team and really reading installation instructions. And that's one thing I noticed contractors don't do well. Back in the day when we get a product, when I was a roofing contractor full time, and my people would call me and say, "Hey, we've never seen this, or how do we install it?" The first thing I would do is pick up this thing. It's called Google. And I would Google the manufacturer that made the product, and there would always be an best installation practices manual. And I would read it and I would figure out how to do it right. Because at the end of the day, I heard so many times, even from subcontractors, we've been doing this way for 20 years, and I've had to say, well, you've been doing it wrong.
Right.
And it happens all day across the industry. And if there is an issue, guess what the manufacturer is not going to do? They're not going to cover it because you didn't do it right. So people need to really dig in to understand what is approved substrates to put roofs over. We're talking about roofing. They need to understand proper ventilation If you're selling roofs, you should absolutely know what proper ventilation looks like. If you don't and you do it wrong, and it doesn't matter if it's an existing home, it's your job as a professional contractor to fix it if there's an existing issue. Add to it, change it, make sure it has good inflow and outflow. That's one of the biggest things I'm seeing this day and age is ventilation issues.
Yeah.
And products, everybody's going to understand, are not built the same as they were 20 years ago. Products are innovating with manufacturers and they're focused on two things. One is wind and one is hail. How do we build better products that combat wind and hail? And so they're built differently, which means that, it creates different failure points in other areas if you're not installing properly.
Hmm.
Underlayment products, read on it. Ice and water shield, how do I install it right? A lot of people think, I'll give you an example, you can take a roll of moisture guard and roll it out 33 foot and pill it and kick it into place, and that's its proper installation, and it's not. It has to be installed in 10-foot sections. I've firsthand seen that cause deformation on a roof, a big one, and they done it wrong. So how would you like to be the contractor that's replacing 300 square on your own because you installed the underlayment wrong,
Yeah. Well,
right? So
it
you got
kind
to
of
read the
goes back.
instructions.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying or what we were talking about earlier. Like at the end of 2025, review your financials, right? What jobs worked, what products worked, what didn't work, where you made money, where you didn't make money. It's very much, I think, even more important on the production training that you do the exact
It
same thing.
is
A review
mitigating
at the end
risk.
of the
That's what we
year.
call it.
The what?
Mitigating risk is what we call that for your
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. And
So
so
important.
yeah, John Broyce. I mean, with in your company, both of you guys have had your own construction or roofing companies, but in your company at the end of the year, during some of those, although you're in Tampa, you may not have so many, you might be roofing during the winter, and doing this during the middle of the summer, but how, really taking that time to review safety, to review what projects work, to review warranties that were maybe not accepted because of poor installation. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and we run three markets. I was in Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Florida. So we had
There you go.
so it was it's a good reset time, right? So that's the time to look back and reflect like what went right, what went wrong, what do we need to fix, what do we need to correct. But it goes right back into the training side of this. We spent January, February mainly just training, training the production team, the sales team, the internal team, the staff. And again, it would go back to, well, what are we going to be resetting and doing, right? So like anytime that, we would take this off season at a time and say, hey, like we do need to fix this part of the ship, right? And then so we put the ship, you put it in the dry dock, you work on it, and then you launch it again in March, right? So that's what I would say that I would look at that as far as when it came to the training, and then a little bit of thing too on the production training. A couple of pro tips to kind of throw out there too is make sure the project managers when they're out there on site are checking lot numbers, little stuff, right? Lot
Yeah.
numbers. Like look at the lot numbers because a lot of times distribution is trying to do the right thing and they're trying to get you the product that you need. But let's say it's a rustic plaque job, they might have it from two different lots and they might be 2 years apart, or it might even be two different plants. So just make sure that you're checking plants and lot numbers too, because that'll reduce a lot of risk too. And so those were the trains that we would go back and do. With the production team is go through the checklist, revamp the checklist. What are some of the things that cost us money on the bottom line this year?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just hoping that we tore off, the right roof this year, right? And didn't have to do a free roof, because we went to the neighbor's house and not the correct house. So putting all those safeguards in place, right? And so that was all part of that project review, all the, training and the production training that we would do.
Yeah. I love it. Well, let's keep going on that training because, and I'm gonna start with you, John Broyce. Really, this is where your company right now, and you're consulting and you're helping contractors through TAMKO and also just nationally, but sales training. And John Abernathy said it earlier, practice, 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 practice. Talk to us a little bit
Yeah.
about how to use this down season, with your sales team.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And John said it best earlier. It's like if you think of Patrick Mahomes, he's probably thrown 1,000 more footballs in practice than what he has in a game. So if you're not willing to go out and do that kind of work, like then, it's not rec league basketball, right? That is what we tell all of our sales reps. Like this is a professional sport. Like this is how you pay, all of your bills, and this is how that you take care of your family. So our whole thing was practice. It wasn't just in the off season. Off season, we would do boot camps, like 1 week or 2 week long boot camps, but we were practicing every Thursday morning from 9 to 11. Like that's all we did was consistent training with that.
Yeah.
So I would say that but we'd bring new reps in just twice a year and just do boot camps twice a year. So it'd usually be in the February time or in the June time.
Yeah.
It's good. You kind of see who's not going to make it by the end of May, and then you would revamp if you had to in June. So I would say that like on the sales training side, that's the main focus, was boot camp style, right? To bring them in for a week or two at a time.
That's what you want. And I think, John Abernathy, I'd like you to talk about this a little bit on sales training, but during those boot camps, during the downtime, whenever you're doing sales training, how important is it to, again, bring your manufacturers in and talk about new products, new features, how they can talk to consumer trends and really talk to those consumers in a way that makes sense. Kind of talk about what you provide that way.
Yeah, so I think it's important to do that, get the reps in. We also provide training around our products. I mean, very intensive training, and our programs. So, understanding, what product best fits the homeowner in your market, and then also understanding what warranty that you should offer to your homeowner. And it's amazing to me to see how many people go out and sell in roofing they don't even know what they're selling. It's
Yeah.
it's it really is amazing. I mean, and I'm not just saying that lightly. I was in front of a group last week and I asked a specific question to the group and nobody could answer the question. And these are people that are selling this stuff every day. And I said, would it be, and I said in front of the whole group, I said, wouldn't it be wild to think you're a salesman selling a product and you didn't know what you were selling?
Yeah.
Or selling a
Wow.
thing. It's wild.
Yeah.
But it is so true how many people are not educated. And I think it's just because I was telling JB this the other night, the analogy of like how a lot of people come to roofing sales is it's like, hey, where'd you get that big jacked up F-350 Ford diesel pickup? It's like, well, I sell roofs. Look at my $25,000 commission check from next month. And then they say, this is the majority of the industry, by the way. Well, I want to sell roofs. Well, how do I learn how to sell roofs? Well, come ride with me for a couple of weeks and you can sell roofs too. And so that's really the approach of most of the industry. And that's why a lot of guys don't make it, is because they don't have a good, solid process, utilizing and leveraging the manufacturer, and also internally of training these guys. Because there's a lot of things that they absolutely need to know before they go out and get in front of homeowners. It
Right.
can really make a company look bad by a guy going out and saying something, or it makes you look
Yeah.
like you don't know what you're doing when you can't answer questions professionally. So, like, John said again, it's like we have, or both of us, I guess, you have to spend time with the reps. You have to have a process of training these sales reps.
Yeah.
So onboarding and training process is so crucial. The biggest companies I get to work with in America, every one of them that have scaled to a high level, it's because of their systems and processes they have in the company. How do we put on 20 roofs a day without having problems?
Yep.
Right? And how do we onboard effectively, onboard and get these reps from zero A to Z, um, consistently to grow our business? And if you don't have that written process, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
We'll just
Yeah.
leave it at
Well,
that.
I think too, along that lines is really as you're doing your planning, your review for 2025, your planning, and then this quiet time. I tell technology companies this all the time. This is the time to talk to contractors, right?
Yep.
They have time to listen to you starting in the fall, going in through the winter and early,
Right.
by the time spring comes and the storms start coming through, you kind of lost them. So let's talk a little bit about that review and really using this time to grow your business, talking about technology. So, John Abernathy, let's start with you.
Yeah. So yeah, CRM, I mean, I think John Gross and I both have a lot of experience with CRMs at a pretty high level, really. And so, wow, automations, AI technology, that's the push of all of the guys that are doing it the best. It's like, I think personally that artificial intelligence, they said back in the 90s when the internet came aboard, what did they say? It's going to change the world. Well, if you look back from 1995 to now, I mean, it absolutely has changed the world.
Yep.
Now we're into this new race of AI, which is, I was working on it with it yesterday. It's incredible, what you can do with AI. Um, so I think a couple things that are going to be the hardest things, and JB, you can kind of lean in on this too. Like, what are the two things I think are going to really make in this market, the competitive market, moving into the future, that's going to make the biggest difference? It's people that focus on the AI side of it to help lean their companies up and be more profitable because in automations, that's something we've worked on hard in our businesses that have been great. It's been great for us. And I think the other thing is like, how do we, the next issue they're going to have is labor issues. That's kind of what
Yeah.
we're starting to see is, and so like the people that can figure out how to do that at a high level are the ones that are going to succeed in the future. And so your CRMs are absolutely, I mean, I've seen a lot of them that weren't that great 5 years ago, and I'm taking a look at them again. I'm like, man, they've come a long ways. That's because technology is always moving forward. And if you don't
Right.
have a good CRM or you're not even working in a CRM, you'd be surprised how many people are still not working in the CRM world.
Yeah.
You're going to have a really hard time growing and keeping up with competitors because it's
Right.
automated processes where you can have half as many people and do three times as much.
Yeah, John Bros.
And it's very
Yeah, I would say,
organized.
yeah, I'd say that, the word that comes to mind is trauma. But what I would say is when it comes to systems and processes, like right now is the time, right? So right now is it's time to retool the ship, right? And what I would say is don't get over in the doom loom of changing over systems every year. Try to find something that works and work on it, right? It's just like finding the right race car, the right sports car. If you keep changing it and putting a new car on the track every year, and you keep changing what's underneath of the hood every year, like it's not going to be competitive. It's very confusing. It's hard on the team. It's hard on the repair teams. It's hard on everybody to implement that stuff. So find one and then find somebody that knows how to implement it and help you implement it and just work on that. That's what I'd say is like, we've pulled the band-aids off a couple times in our own companies, and I think you only get one change, right, every 2 years of like changing, right?
Yeah.
So it hurts, it's hard, and it's expensive. And so what I can say from the private equity side too is when I was helping with all these operational efficiencies and some consolidating of the companies and their systems, like they did 90-day sprints, and we had a team of 15 to 25 people working on it, and it took a long time to switch systems and processes. So what I would say is this is, now's the time to work on it. I would agree with John is to lean into AI, and especially with automations. Our whole goal was, streamline as much as you can, even five years ago, is to get rid of as many of the minuscule tasks as what you can with your people, to where that they can do what's important, and that's face-to-face interaction with the customer. So whatever that you can do either through AI or automations, like that's the most important part is like get the people back into the people business,
Yeah.
right? And let AI take care of all the task work.
Yep, I agree.
It's so true. Okay, I think that technology is what allows you to really get in front, the speed to lead. I mean, I'm going to kind of just circle that right back in with you need to have a good CRM. You need to be able to have the right call center, have everything flowing. AI is going to be, I think I agree with both of you gentlemen. AI is going to be huge this year, especially when it comes to call centers, chat bots, instant bids, instant estimates, all of those kinds of different things. So let's talk just a little bit about really reviewing and taking time to think about consumer demand. Because this year we all agreed slower weather year, but when that weather hits, you need to have the technology and the systems and the people in place to be able to
Right.
take it on from performance, from the lead to performance, production, all the way through. John Broyce, kind of talk a little bit about meeting this and understand. I mean, we have color in there, which I think is, you know, there's so many things that change so rapidly that consumers want, and you have to be in front of
Right.
that.
Yeah, I'll take the speed to lead thing. That's the biggest gap that we see in most of the contractors, um, you know, systems when we're working with them is speed to lead. And what I think to keep in mind too is AI is still trying to solve a couple things. So make sure that you're not just throwing, things at the problem without understanding it, because there is some data integrity issues right now with some of the AI. But speed to lead, like if you're using it as an overflow for call center stuff and those types of things. But honestly, like if you're buying leads and you're spending money and you got digital marketing going or whatever your lead ag is, the main thing to think about, if you don't answer the phone and call that person back in under 3 minutes and keep them on the phone for 8 minutes, the lead's gone. And right now
Yeah.
it's so expensive to even get a lead, right? To pay per click is really, really expensive right now. So, the consumer demand now, and you got to think too, it's the DoorDash effect, right? It's like their attention span is about, 20 seconds,
Yeah.
and they're on to the next thing. So when they click that button that, hey, I want to talk to, John Abernathy Roofing, you better be contacting them within 30 seconds, right? And have a appointment scheduled within 3 minutes because their attention span's gone. Like they've
Yeah.
already went back to scrolling on Facebook,
Yeah.
right?
Finding the
Was
next
So,
finding the next customer.
I always
yeah.
used like the analogy of like we're all, John B and I both have wives, and so like if I have an issue with my roof and I'm just a normal consumer and I'm out by the pool in the summer and my wife is on me about, hey, did you get anybody to get on that roof? The first thing we'll do is pick up my phone and we'll start making calls until somebody answers and somebody gives me the answer that I need. It's a pain
Yep.
point. I need to solve this problem in the next 20 minutes because I want to get back in the pool.
Yeah.
And it's what they're looking for immediately is they're going to go on Google, I'm going to pick up my phone, I'm going to Google roofer near me or roof repair or whatever it is. And these names
Yep.
are going to start popping up. I'm going to start clicking buttons and picking up the phone and calling until somebody answers and reassures
Answers.
they're showing up to take care of my problem. And I'm not going to stop calling companies until somebody does.
Yeah.
So the speed of lead's a very important thing. And even on the weekends, because I mean, you get a lot of people on a Saturday that scenario happens to, and they want to be able to talk to somebody and get something scheduled and know that, hey, somebody's going to show up and they actually care,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, a
The
big part of the roofing industry, I've always said, is showing up. You just got to show
Yeah.
up.
Got to show up.
So
And really, technology is going to be the key to so much of this, but you have to vet it out. And to John's point earlier, you really do. And I'm just we're having such a great time here. So I'm gonna move forward here, even though we kind of talked about performance and consumer demands. But I want to take this time because as we're all kind of talking about this, right? This is what you need to do to review 2025. This is what you need to do for 2026. These are the things to maximize your business during the off season. One of them, and a big one, is to get in touch with your manufacturer and really understand their affinity programs and what's going on. So, John Abernathy, I would love for you to tell us what is an affinity program and how can it help the contractors?
our affinity program at TAMKO is just, going out to the marketplace and finding what we feel like is the best solutions for contractors. So maybe you're struggling with more leads, which is pretty much everybody, right? Let's just be fair. Well, we have some solutions for that. CRMs, as we talked about, we have some solutions we've vetted for that. Um, really all the way across the board, marketing, operations type stuff, technologies, all the way down to like we have I think a partnership now with Catchall, things that protect people's property, things that are important to homeowners. And it allows the contractors being part of our program to get discounts with all these. So like if you went directly to them, you wouldn't get the discount as if you were certified through TAMKO. So it's not something that TAMKO makes any money on or anything. It's just something we bring as a value, losing our national leverage as a value to contractors to help them save money and have not just save money though. It's about vetting out and making sure we have the best. So we feel like are the best solutions for contractors.
Yeah.
Um, you know, why is it important to be partnered with the manufacturer? And I absolutely call it a partnership. Um, it's because you can get in front of guys that will, that we have on staff that will help you legitimately help you grow your business to have the experience. So, John Bros and I don't know how many years combined experience that we have of not just working in a roofing company, but owning one and be able to scale them to a high level and do a good job with it. You can get, we always call it, don't pay the dumb tax, call us because a lot of things look good on paper and they sound good, but they're really not. And just helping guide people in the direction of partnerships and relationships that will help them in their business instead of just wasting time on things. So that's kind of something we really vet out at a really high level. Um, It's important to find your manufacturer of choice as a contractor because and stick with that manufacturer because you're going to get the most benefit. I see a lot of contractors split their business up between three or four different manufacturers, or as whatever the homeowner wants. And that's absolutely the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, because if I'm on my side and I look at a company and and they're splitting their business up between five manufacturers, they look like a really, really small roofing company.
Yeah.
So and I find out, well, you want to be able to build a real partnership by exclusively working with one manufacturer. I learned that lesson years ago and aligned with one manufacturer. And that's where I got the most support and value. So I think it's super important for guys to understand that. I even kind of believe that if you can, even on a distribution standpoint, find who you fit best with. Like I say, not everybody serves the same chicken and not everybody's going to like the same chicken, but find out whatever you value and the things you like, just find one and stick with one and quit bouncing everywhere and actually build real relationship. At the end of the day, on the long play, you're going to come out way ahead. With rewards and everything. I mean, if you're
With
splitting your business up, I mean, most of these reward programs that contractors get on contract rewards are tiered. So it's how
Mm-hmm.
many you do, and you get to the next level, you get a lot more. If you're splitting it up amongst multiple manufacturers, you're getting a very low reward and a little piece of it from each one, and it's not valuable to you, you know.
Yeah.
And we also, like I said, we want to help you build your business. Like I said, John JB, one thing I appreciate about him is he's just not coming in and doing a 30-minute counseling session with a lot of our contractors. He's really getting engaged with them at a high level, and we're seeing great results from what he's doing with the contractors. It's helping them grow their business, helping them get more organized, understand things at a high level. You want to understand how the big guys are really scaling and doing that, fluently and very, very smoothly. Well, talk to JB. He absolutely understands how to do that. There's so much value and you can set in your own room in what I like to call an echo chamber and look across the table at each other and try to figure it out, or you can bring somebody in that has the experience that can give you the answers in 2 hours of how to figure it out. And that is so valuable what we have on staff or within our network group here at TAMKO.
Everything.
Yeah, so um,
And well, I have to
and we have
say,
Roofer's Coffee Shop, right? Which
River
is the
Coffee
best.
Shop is part of the affinity program. So anybody out there, if you're part of TAMKO, you can get discounts on the R Club, free classifieds, all kinds of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that you're going to find there. So, but I hate to do this, gentlemen. I have to say thank you because we are at the end of our hour. It has gone so great. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. John and John, thank you. I know we had a few little challenges getting on, so I appreciate both of you so much because this has been so informative and just great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Hey,
you.
have a
you.
wonderful week.
And thank you all for watching. Please join us tomorrow morning for our last coffee conversations of the year. It's going to be State of the Industry. Register now. Don't miss it. Trent Cotney, Steve Little, Elizabeth Hurst. It is going to be amazing. And then we'll be back next year with, if you can believe that, we'll be back 2026 with our next RLW webinar. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next time.